It is Friday, May 4th, 2018. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of CoinMetal. And yes, we did get our asses kicked at Jiu-Jitsu. I don't know how productive it was. Well, it certainly was productive. I shouldn't say that. I like to scan my Twitter feed like all day long, right? You know, just off and on, a couple little tweets here and there. And this one tweet that I saw today really kind of caught me off guard. But it changed how I looked at jiu-jitsu, like, wholly. It was something to the effect of, in jiu-jitsu, one should never be afraid of defeat. Or failure or something like that, or be afraid to be beaten or something like that. And I thought about that, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and it just dawned on me. It's like, yeah, you know, you can't be afraid of failing or being defeated because you're already defeated at that point. And I believe that was the continuation of the quote. My apologies, I couldn't tell you exactly who said it because I don't have the tweet in front of me. But yeah, you know, don't worry about failure. Just get the fuck in there and do it, kind of attitude. And so that's kind of the mindset that I went in there with today. Was just, whatever, man. Put them in front of me and let's do this thing. You know, and I felt really comfortable. You know, and I've been cutting back on caffeine. I got to tell you, if you are doing any kind of athletic stuff and you rely on caffeine, I have to say, I think it really harms your performance. It harms my performance anyway. It makes me all jittery, and I make the stupid mistakes like 8 billion times more because, you know, my brain's going too fast for me to even really consider what I'm doing. You know, and before I know it, I'm rolling into a choke, and I can't seem to figure out exactly why, and I keep getting frustrated, and, you know, that's just too much shit, you know? But what I did find that helped me out was that before I would go to jiu-jitsu, I always have, like, a little bit of anxiety, and, you know, I think that the caffeine is kind of for me anyway, it's an attempt to push over it, you know, to get up and over that not wanting to do it, you know, because of the anxiety of failing or being a disappointment to myself and others, you know, and you know, like I said, I thought about that really hard. It's just like, you know what who the fuck am I afraid of disappointing? You know, I mean, so what? I'm not going to be 100% happy no matter what. I'm always going to feel there's some sort of adjustment that can be made, some little improvement that can be made to make the movement more efficient, to make my performance more efficient. I think that's like the attitude you really need to take with it, is that you're pushing towards continuous improvement. And much like a lot of other things in life, you aren't going to get there in just one shot. You got to see where you messed up, see where your bad habits are, your blind spots really are, because they're there. You know, you're not seeing them because you're not looking at yourself from your opponent's perspective. You know, and it's like it takes them to continuously catch you in the choke or continuously put you in the guard a certain way anyway, for you to figure it out. Oh, you know, when I'm dropping my shoulder, they're just, you know, grabbing a hold of the shoulder and pulling down, and, you know, that's opening me up to them taking my back, or so on and so forth. You know, there's always some hole that needs to be addressed. And, you know, I found that when I'm all whacked out on caffeine, that's a lot harder for me to go through. It takes me a lot longer for me to really hammer it home and get it in my mind where that glitch is, you know, because again, I'm going so fast that, you know, I'm focused on going fast and applying pressure, and, you know, I'm not thinking about, okay, if I slide my foot this way, I can get it on the inside of his knee and push it open a little bit and get that other foot in there, get him in a butterfly guard, sweep, go from there. That whole sequence doesn't even come into play because, I got the underhook and I'm just trying to get around to the back and take the neck, and, I'm applying all kinds of strength and effort trying to get that done. And it's like that differential. I think it's been really kind of messing with my my jiu-jitsu, and so I think it's been a good move to try and get rid of the caffeine. I'm a little bit wired now, but that's only because I've been up like all day long, and we got a 3-hour show ahead of us, so do what you gotta do, mink. Anyway, I caught this tweet on my ever trusty Twitter feed, and it's by Tommy Lee of all people. And it made me reflect on the third axiom that we close this show with about watching your own bunghole because nobody else will. Apparently Tommy Lee will. Listen to this. There's no greater love than making sure each other's bunghole smells like roses. So it's with that I decided that I'm going to open up this show with a song that I've always been looking for an excuse to play, not necessarily as the first dance, but, as an announced song. And so here it is. Static X, Love Dump, here on CoinMetal. And that was Faith No More with Falling to Pieces. And I don't know about you guys, but I did hear some murmurs about Bitcoin having cracked $10,000 again. And it's kind of interesting to me to see that kind of a bump. Although, it's something to be expected with all of the additional regulatory oversight that we've started to see. Although I don't know how effectual it'll be over the long term. Although I do see that the CFTC is trying to resolve themselves to, really get ahead of this and try and be, a functional department in this new and changing future. And you got to hand it to them for trying. But the question is, will they be able to do more than just provide casual oversight? Honestly, I think that's their best role. And in the case of actual, how should I say this, fraudulent activity or whatever, I believe that they can be a key component in investigating, say, fraudulent crimes and whatnot. I mean, because they do know what to look for. They do understand enough about this technology to know exactly what it's good for. So, I mean, you shift the CFTC's mandate more toward, I guess, observing the markets, and in the cases of actual enforcement actions, being able to provide investigatory powers as well as records of former behavior, whatnot. And I think this is the better alternative to, say, registration and licensure. Because one of the things about cryptocurrencies is the instance of actual necessity for them or a particular program or whatnot is pretty ephemeral. It's a one-off. It's maybe a month that goes on and then people figure out a more efficient way to do it and they change. And I don't see this as something that's going to stop changing. If anything, as interest grows in this space, I think the rate of change will actually continue to increase. And I don't really feel like the CFTC or the SEC or anybody else like that is going to have all that much control. So again, I think in the instance of actual criminal activity, where somebody has committed a crime, is acting fraudulently, is, embezzling funds or so on or so forth, that's where I see the CFTC having a key role. But now here's the thing, and there is no getting around it, and you really got to keep it in your mind that the likelihood that they will enforce with an even hand is nil. Up to date, they have not, to my knowledge, enforced equivalently across the board. Where they'll nail smaller players more punitively than they will bigger players, because there's an interdependence there. You need the big players to continue to be in the market, otherwise there's these big divots in economic activity, and it's bad for business and so on and so forth. But in the case of transactions and commerce that's occurring on public blockchains, and let's just assume for a moment that they do all stay on chain and completely visible to the public. At what point will we be looking at those and observing clear money flows out into and out of entities that are far in excess of their actual, let's say, recorded tax paying or anything like that? If they're receiving deference in the market, I think it'll be less likely to be accepted by the greater market as a whole. I mean, I think of commerce in the crypto space as more akin to an organic system. In that if there's a cancerous cell, we're really, really quick to warn one another, hey, you might want to stay away from that guy over there. He's kind of green under the gills. He's not looking really economically fit. He doesn't seem to be fulfilling on his promises. His software doesn't seem to be doing what he says it does, and he doesn't really have a white paper, and he's barely passed a proof of concept. We say these things to one another. In biological terms, there's all kinds of neurotransmitters and other signal senders in your body that are attacking invaders or attempted invaders all the fucking time. And see, I think that the problem is that we've utilized federal agencies such as the CFTC as kind of like a system-wide kind of white blood cell kind of guy. He's supposed to hunt them down and hunt down the bad guys and chew them up. Same thing with FBI, all those guys. But where I have seen, and actually CFTC's role is more about keeping the bad guys from even coming into the market to begin with. Unfortunately, I think that the regulatory burden that they place, such as KYC, AML, all that other bullshit, creates bigger problems. And I'm starting to wonder if the CFTC isn't starting to understand this. I got this article here on Bitcoin.com, and I just wanted to go through it really quick here. This is by Samuel Haig, authored yesterday, according to this business. CFTC's Christopher Giancarlo criticizes outdated regulatory mandate. The chairman of the United States Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, Christopher Giancarlo, recently discussed the challenges associated with assessing the regulatory implications of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, according to the CFTC's decades-old legislative mandate. Let's see here. In a recent interview with CNBC, Mr. Giancarlo acknowledges the inappropriateness of the CFTC's antiquated regulatory apparatus when assessing the innovative phenomena of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. When asked of the legal classification of Bitcoin, Mr. Giancarlo stated, quote, "It's a great debate. A lot of people are looking at it from so many different angles, and we at the CFTC have been looking at it for a number of years now. Yes, we're very aware of that." Mr. Giancarlo emphasized the challenge of applying the CFTC's outdated regulatory apparatus to Bitcoin, stating that, quote, the statutes under which the CFTC operates was written in our case in 1935 and the SEC in 1933 through 34. And it's often hard to look at those statutes and find out where something is new and is innovative as Bitcoin and many other cryptocurrencies falls into a regulatory regime that was written decades ago. Here's the bigger challenge, Mr. Giancarlo, and I just got to say it. It's not your call. It's not the call of the SEC. It's not the call of the CFTC. It's not the call of the President of the United States. But it's all of our call. See, whatever changes you might make to policy here won't be affecting people in Singapore, except for that they won't be able to do business with some of us all of a sudden. And so you're just going to be limiting our access to the market the more you try and step into it. Continuing on. When queried regarding previous statements arguing that Bitcoin exhibits similarities to commodities, Mr. Giancarlo stated, quote, I think there are certain aspects of this that you might call a virtual asset like gold. Only it's virtual. It is an asset that many find worthy of holding for a long period of time, adding that cryptocurrencies, quote, have aspects that might not be ideal as a means of exchange, but might be suitable as a buy and hold strategy. Sir, you should know this, but it has to be both. If people don't value it as a means of exchange, it has absolutely zero value as a store of value. Continuing on. The CFTC chairman added that, quote, but the truth of the matter is that Bitcoin and a lot of its other virtual currency counterparts really have elements of all of the different asset classes. And so, as a world, as regulators, we are coming to grips with this just now in real time, concluding that, quote, it's complicated, and I don't see it being resolved anytime soon. Oh my goodness, Mr. Giancarlo, I could not agree more. This is akin to my sentiment that anybody who tells you that they are a, quote, expert is full of shit, because they don't know what the fuck is going to happen tomorrow, and an expert probably would. Bitcoin futures regulations, quote, working out quite well. Mr. Giancarlo pointed to the Bitcoin futures market as a successful example of cryptocurrency regulation, stating that, quote, in our case, though, we have seen the licensing and the operation of Bitcoin futures contracts, which are cash-settled contracts on Bitcoin operated by the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and the Chicago Board Options Exchange, CBOE. And those contracts are working out quite well. When asked of the potential risk of, quote, overzealous regulation, stifling innovation in the cryptocurrency sector, Mr. Giancarlo stated that as a regulatory agency, the CFTC has often been in the forefront of technological innovation. It's in our DNA as an agency. We try to apply our statute on a principles-based approach. We look at the core principles and apply it to new innovations like this. And that is the approach that we've taken in the case of Bitcoin futures. Responsibility for development of legislation lies with Congress. Yeah, good luck with that. The CFTC chairman emphasized that the development of an effective regulatory apparatus for cryptocurrencies lies with the United States Congress, stating, quote, at the end of the day, it's for Congress and not regulators to decide whether new policies should be evolved for these new asset classes. All regulators have to apply their statute in the spirit in which it was written by Congress, added Mr. Giancarlo. Yeah, this would be just to take money that didn't have any fucking thing to do with you. So, more theft. There we go. Mr. Giancarlo revealed that many politicians are coming to recognize the need for legislative reform regarding the development of cryptocurrency regulations, stating that I think there's certainly an appetite amongst a number of congressmen and women and senators that I have spoken to approach this with some new eyes, some new thinking, and so I think there is a growing on Capitol Hill for some rethinking here. Growing recognition of need for regulatory reform. The CFTC chairman stated that, quote, Jay Clayton from the SEC and I recently testified in front of the Senate Banking Committee, and we talked to Congress about whether maybe some new legislation might be appropriate in this area. And I think you will see going forward, perhaps in this Congress or a future Congress, some attempt to deal with this new innovation. Yeah, and they're going to get their asses kicked anyway. Despite the increasing recognition of the need for legislative reform, Mr. Giancarlo stressed that it will take time for a robust regulatory regime to be developed for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Quote, I know Bitcoin has been in place since 8 or 9 years or so ago, but the fact of the matter is it still is relatively new for us at the regulatory agency, said Mr. Giancarlo, adding that it will, quote, take some new open-mindedness, some new way of thinking about it for us to get our heads around it entirely. What is your response to the CFTC chairman's comments? Share your thoughts in the comments section below, and we are going to dive down in there and see what people have had to say. Ooh, we got a couple comments in here. Got one by Bruce Thompson. Good article, thanks. I'm following the issue. 1. When on the phone, you give advice to a friend about the best camera for their need, and they therefore use your advice to get one cheaper or with better features for the same money. You have transferred value to them. That income is not taxed as income, nor is it subject to regulation or truthfulness unless the advice was changed as commercial business practice with accountability. Number 2. Perhaps the cryptocurrencies are adopting this, quote, informality too, removing the go-between of banks, replacing them with personal holding and transfer of value with personal responsibility and liability. Have a look at this genius speaking, and skip 22 minutes, and there's a video, I guess, somewhere involved in this. Very, very keen, Bruce. Yeah, I definitely agree with you there that we have removed several go-betweens. And let's see here. There was a response to that one. Would love to see the video you mentioned, but alas, it seems you failed to include the link. Thanks for your comments, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. Oh, and apparently he did post it, and the name for it, and apparently it is on YouTube. Blockchain, Tony Lane, Casserly, Exponential Finance. Yeah, that's cool. Alright, take your time with regulation, fellas. I'm enjoying the Wild West show. IOTA release queue, that's pretty amazing. I would support more FUD from the writers here on IOTA. Yeah, so, I do have to say their views at the CFTC, or at least by Mr. Giancarlo here, I'm kind of in agreement with some of them, but in opposition to many others. I think the thing to keep in mind is that this is a global phenomenon. The communities for these coins are global in scale. That's why when people tell you scaling Bitcoin or scaling any other cryptocurrency, I think they're full of shit. Immediately. Why? Because it's already global. The scale of it will grow with participation, but the the span and distribution of it is already global. So where the fuck is there to scale to? I mean, you don't need to scale to Uranus, you know. you got to cover the transactive activity happening here on planet Earth. And, you know, it's like when people start talking about things like gigabyte-sized blocks, I'm thinking to myself, exactly how much crap are you talking about putting on the blockchain that you're going to need a gigabyte worth of space? I mean, exactly what year are we talking about, and how many humans are there on the planet that are generating all of this fucking commerce? I mean, because that's got to be a shit ton of commerce. And like I said, I think they're just about as screwy as the CFTC, people that talk like this about cryptocurrencies. You know, that they know like 3/4 of the story, and they're making assumptions about the last quarter that completely invalidate the other 3. I don't know. It's like, why would I use a cryptocurrency that I need a proprietary miner? Not just a proprietary miner, but that's like the only one that can do it, you know? It's not like Bitcoin mining now, where there is some centralization with regard to like ASICs, and there is some centralization with regard to the production of GPU cards and all that other shit. But there are choices in between. There's not just one manufacturer of each. There is choice on that aspect, and there are differences in price and differences in performance. You know, it's not like, you know, what Craig Wright is talking about, where he's going to patent this 1 gigabyte miner that's going to mine a gigabyte block in 10 minutes, and he's going to sell those for $20,000 a piece. Fuck you. Are you fucking kidding me? How much of the market are you trying to cut out here? Because it sounds like about like 97% of it to me. You know, people have a hard enough time paying $2,000 for a really good miner or a really good card. What? They're not going to spend $20,000 on one fucking unit. Your network is probably going to crash or just be used by bankers. And, you know, if that's what they want to do, good for them. But of what value will it really be if they're the only ones using it? And I do have this other one that I did want to touch on here before we have any more music. And it's on Cointelegraph.com. And this is by our good friend Anna Alexandra. And so yes, no penis. Former U.S. Federal Reserve Governor says federal digital currency deserves consideration. Yeah, good for you. Kevin Warsh is an American financier who was governor at the Fed from 2006 to 2011. He was a top contender to become its chairman when the Trump administration chose Jerome Powell instead. Warsh said that if he had returned to the Federal Reserve, he would have formed a team to, quote, think about the Fed creating FedCoin, where we could bring legal activities into a digital coin. He stated, quote, not that it would supplant and replace cash, but it would be a pretty effective way when the next crisis happens for us to maybe conduct monetary policy, i.e., manipulate it. Warsh said that, quote, most central banks have a view that these crypto assets are clever, like guys in the garage did it, and it's kind of cool or risky given the possibility for investor losses and widespread fraud. He reportedly noted that blockchain technology would deliver benefits to the Federal Reserve in terms of the payment systems it operates. This, according to Warsh, would enable the transfer of trillions of dollars between banks. Yeah, it already does, dude. Jerome Powell said that the Fed is actually looking at blockchain as something that may have significant applications in the wholesale payments part of the economy. According to Warsh, central banks should treat digital currencies as more than a novelty if people really believe to some extent that cryptocurrency is the future of money. Quote, Congress gave the Fed a monopoly over money, and if the next generation of cryptocurrencies look more like money and less like gold, and have less volatility associated with them, so they would be not just a speculative asset, but could be a reliable unit of account, as a purely defensive matter, I wouldn't want somebody to take that monopoly from me. Hey, dude, it's already too fucking late. Your monopoly ended in 2009. Get it through your head. And Bitcoin's monopoly, for that matter, it ended in 2012, 2013. So, your purely defensive matter, it's gone. It's gone. It's all gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Continuing on. Some central banks are already moving forward with studies and tests on decentralized ledger technology. In March, the Bank of England announced it was undertaking a proof of concept study to understand whether the renewed real-time gross settlement service could be capable of interacting with blockchain. The European Central Bank completed research with the Bank of Japan on blockchain's potential for transforming securities settlements. Recently, South Korea's central bank announced it was considering cryptocurrencies and blockchain applications for its project for a cashless society. And I'm going to tell you right now, you are all going to be mildly, if not thoroughly, disappointed. And there's a reason for this, my opinion here. That, yes, cryptocurrencies and, quote, their blockchains can be used for incredible means of account. The only trouble is they hold everybody to the same standards of account. So, if you start doing things like, say, do most of your transactions and whatnot off-chain, and then transmit in a big block of them, that might work out for you. But once people get keen on it, they're going to do it themselves too. And so that first mover advantage is quickly neutralized. And a thing you have to keep in mind, they keep talking about quote-unquote blockchain. And I can only assume that they're talking about in the long term with regard to Lightning Network, that if we start diverting enough of the shit off-chain, that they're going to be able to pull their cloak and dagger money manipulation bullshit over these two-way payment channels, and no one will be the wiser. And I'm here to tell you that's just not going to work out. Because like I said, it doesn't just record me, it records you too. Even your non-participation is recorded. So, you got to get that through your head, dude. Got to get it through your head. And I don't think that people are going to give up their interests in Bitcoin just to make sure that your books even out. If their books are on the blockchain too, they're going to be keenly interested in their interest. And so shit like double spends and whatnot, that monitoring for that's going to be very, very keen on their list of things to be doing. And so this whole idea that, you're going to be pegging it all to the Bitcoin blockchain, that's fucking silly. I think if anything, if you start doing that, what's going to end up happening is the miners will do what you're wanting them to do and just fucking bail out. Bitcoin will go to like proof of stake or something like that, and some other cryptocurrency will get all that mining power, all that hashing power. It's not just going to end. Those miners aren't going to just stop doing what they've been wanting to do and they've been doing for months or years or whatever. And so I expect that, again, You're going to get this thing going. It's going to go wonderfully for about a year. And then you're going to start thinking, oh, we can tweak it here and we can tweak it there and everything will work out. And then it won't work out. And you'll be back where you are right now, where you try and do something like a rollback. And you go talk to Vitalik about how that rollback for the DAO hack, how it really affected his community. How much of his hashing power just said, you know what, fuck this shit, and bailed on him. I know it was over 50%. I think it was somewhere between 60 and 70% of the network just said, fuck you! And sure, the slack was picked up by other miners, but it took a long time to get back up to the amount of hashing power that they had originally. So, you've already got mud in people's eyes, Fed. That's why we have Bitcoin, is your silliness. And so if you try and pull your silliness again, only this time on a public blockchain that's global in scope and scale, you are going to end up like fucking a bunch of people over and then like starting a war over it. Only they'll have the software that they need to create a different cryptocurrency and transact among themselves and not pay into your bullshit and perpetuate the crimes and wars against themselves with the monies that they're paying into via transaction fees and whatnot. That's just going to go away. I keep talking about this thing about pressure, okay, in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, where regulators, if they do apply pressure, more pressure on, say, like the exchange front, immediately the whole market says, you know what, this is creating a bottleneck. It's a potential bottleneck that will inhibit my commerce. So I'm going to dedicate some people to working on a decentralized means of exchange that does not involve these exchanges that have all this KYC AML bullshit. And there you go, your control point is gone. Well, that effect isn't just here on the retail end of shit. Okay, it's all the way up the chain. And so again, you go applying it hard on one end, on your end, then another entity out there, another government, is going to say, oh look, you know what? Fuck the United States. I never really liked those guys anyway. We're going to let all the miners that want to move in and use as much of the fucking electricity they can generate and use here. And then all of a sudden, whatever miners that you did have that have gone industrial are going to look at that and they're going to see that big ass incentive. Hey, you know what? We could go to Malaysia and we could get electricity for basically free if we can generate it ourselves. They're going to give us this big break on the property taxes. They're not going to make us pay property taxes for a decade. Let's go set up a few mining farms there and work this shit. And there you go. That all the potential economic activity that would have generated here in the United States is now in Malaysia. Congratulations. Yay, team. This pressure is not going to stop with just one player. And this is something that the cryptocurrency sector, the crypto space, the cryptosphere, as I call it, has been contending with for the last 9 years. Pressure here, pressure there, tweak here, tweak there. Only it's not a binary activity. It's not just a monopoly activity like it used to be. No. Policy changes on one. They open up opportunities for others to take advantage. And they do. And they will continue to do so. And this is a reality that everybody's got to get really fucking sober about. Choice is no longer something that can be monopolized. Invariably, you are going to push people to do things outside of your control by doing that, by trying to apply more control to it. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And, fuck it. It feels appropriate. Crowbar, Conquering, here on CoinMetal. And that was Metallica with Disposable Heroes, off of that oldie but goodie Master of Puppets. And if you don't have that album and you are a fan of metal, you're a poor deprived child and you need to rectify that business like stat. Anyway, that's just my personal opinion, but I gotta tell you, that's like one of the best albums ever made. Period. I mean, it's like Slayer, Rain and Blood, Metallica, Master of Puppets, Anthrax, Persistence of Time, Suicidal Tendencies, How Will I Laugh Tomorrow. These are all albums that for their time just like completely fucking reset the bar for what I expected at least out of a band. You know, it's like if they didn't hit at least those points, I just wasn't interested, you know? And, yeah. Anyway, I've got another article here that I wanted to touch on because, well, it's always interesting to see how the legacy players really do view this, you know, view cryptocurrencies in general. And usually they hone in on like one aspect of it. It's like bankers, you know, they're all about accounting, right? So, of course, they look at the blockchain and they say, fuck, that's like the answer to our prayers right there. That's full accountability of everything that's been reported. So, you know, naturally, they affix on that. And so that's like all they talk about is blockchain and distributed ledger technology and a bunch of fucking bullshit. But I think it's because they are bankers, you know, that's why they affix on it. They don't really realize that it's not just them that's playing in this aspect of Bitcoin, you know, that the blockchain itself is the result of the work of other people, right? Other interested parties. And they're interested because they're the ones dedicating the work to it. So, of course, when we look around the spectrum, you know, from regulators to bankers to traders, we find different focuses on various points or various aspects or attributes of cryptocurrencies. And so we got another one here. It's on Forbes.com. Bitcoin is the new flight capital. This is by Clem Chambers. And yes, penis, but judging from the look of him, he's probably been a legacy player for a little while. So let's go on with it. Most people love gold. It is simply an emotional commodity where there is a deep-seated allure and lust. Gold used to be money, and it was great money for its time. It was one of the few resistant, standardizable, rare things that was any good for storing value. In a primitive world, gold is great as currency. Its only drawback being its high value. That was where silver and copper stepped in and filled the gap. However, it wasn't long before paper and credit took over from metals, and a promise, even when it hasn't been as good as gold, has ruled money as the source of wealth and transaction far back into history. That doesn't stop gold's modern fan base believing that gold should once again be the basis of our monetary system. It makes sense for them as they own some, and remonetization would shoot gold to the moon faster than any crazy cryptocurrency. Yet back in the 19th and 20th century, industry and society was crucified on a cross of gold, as the anti-gold standard people would have it, and it took the First World War to kill gold as money for much of the world. Yeah, by putting everybody in so much fucking debt they couldn't actually pay with their gold reserves. And the Great Depression in the U.S. to see it out of people's pockets and into the government reserves for good. Gold is terrible money in these times. It's insecure, volatile, and can't be easily digitized. And can't be digitized, period. I don't give a fuck what anybody tells you. It cannot be digitized. You cannot faithfully associate an abstraction of digital value to a chunk of physical gold. You just can't fucking do it. It can't be done. You can use it for identification purposes, but you cannot assure that it's actually in the possession of the person that was last recorded as having it. It could be somewhere else. And because of that, and the fact is it could not even exist. Or worse yet, you could have it thinking it's gold, but it's not really gold because somebody took a bunch of what is it? Not platinum. What's that shit? Anyway, there's some metal, and I can't remember what it is, that is really close to the weight of gold. And they just plate it with gold and then fucking hand it to you, and you don't know the difference because it's the right weight, unless of course you scratch off the surface of it. Anyway, continuing on. Let's see, environment. Not only does it use here we go. Gold is terrible money in these times. It's insecure, volatile, and can't be easily digitized. Can't be digitized. Making more gold puts mining Bitcoin to shame when it comes to environmental damage. Not only does it use 5 times as much energy to mine one single year's more supply, it rips up huge swaths of the environment to do so. Yet, tearing up the globe for gold is nothing new, with the disastrous destruction of North Carolina by gold rushers and the consequent silting up of the Sacramento River, one of the initial impulses for the environmental movement as we know it. However, there is no shaking gold's investment audience. It's the same old types since when I was a small child. Grizzly old guys awaiting Armageddon and a global comeuppance. Like stock market crashes, it has to happen. History is littered with such moments. But I believe if one was to come about these days, gold would not zoom to the skies. Gold is caught in a very narrow range and has been going nowhere for years. Having a basement of gold bars has not been a great investment, even with interest rates near zero, a good environment for gold, at least in theory. The stock market has trounced gold. Pretty much most assets have in this era of QE. Will gold have its day when this merry-go-round shudders to a halt? I believe that one of gold's most powerful use cases is gone, and as such, gold is now only any use outside of its industrial and commercial uses as a currency of war. Governments keep gold in reserves because in war, gold is what you have to pay with. It's no good having soldiers if you can't trade with gold, because pretty soon, if the stakes get high, your paper won't be accepted, and only bullion will buy you what you need in trade, i.e. more guns and people. The use case is still in place, but what has gone away is the use of gold as flight capital. When Little Rocket Man was wrestling with Big Rocket Man, gold didn't react, but Bitcoin went off. Bitcoin went off the dial every night. You can't head for the airport with gold bars these days, and opening a foreign bank account is a thankless task that can take months or never get done. A normal person sweating a war isn't a billionaire with a private office, but in the old days, they might have stashed a few thousand or even hundreds of thousands in gold if they thought the balloon was going up. Today you'd stash it in Bitcoin and be safe in the knowledge that you could fly away on holidays somewhere safe for a few months, and your stash would be as safe as the place you hid your private keys. This is a blow to gold, so that for now when a war breaks out or a conflict starts to brew, don't expect gold to spike like the old days. Now Ethereum, Bitcoin, Ripple, Litecoin, and a myriad of cryptos will get the attention that gold once enjoyed. It's bad news for grumpy old men, but good news for crypto believers and a new trading opportunity for us. And Clem Chambers is the CEO of leading private investors website at advfn.com and author of Be Rich, The Game in Wall Street and Trading Cryptocurrencies, A Beginner's Guide. There we go. So, yeah, this is the kind of thing I would expect somebody who's a prolific trader to say about cryptocurrencies. And to some extent, I believe he's correct. I think that gold has a few advantages that you don't have with cryptocurrencies, and that's things like physical presence. You know, say what you will about it, there is a bit of impact, like psychological impact, when one is ogling a significant amount of gold. And it can't be denied. However, as Clem indicates here, it's not terribly practical to have that much gold. You undertake a significant security liability just having it present. I mean, you could, anybody finds out about it, they're going to be barging down your door trying to find out where you got it so that they can seize it from you. Now, it's not going to be any safer in their hands, but it won't be in yours anymore, and that's the important part here. And to that end, I do see that cryptocurrencies are a much better option. I mean, you could stash it behind a goddamn stamp on a envelope that, you know, you could take an envelope that you've received in the mail, peel up the stamp, and like print or somehow or another put a copy of the private key, you know, make it smaller than the stamp, you know, but still readable, and then just put the stamp over it and stash it somewhere. So it just, you know, it looks like an open bill to anybody else. But, you know, it could be holding billions of dollars. Nobody's the wiser. You better hope like hell nobody comes and does any house cleaning. But that's beside the point. You know, if you stash it away in your records or whatever, people are going to be looking for, if they're looking for paper wallets at all, they're going to be looking for them in full sheets. They're not going to be looking for them behind stamps on a fucking open envelope. You know? But the point being, the places that you can stash cryptocurrencies are myriad. I've seen them put in directly into pictures. You'd be looking at the picture and you can't tell, but there's a fucking wallet address in there that if you've got the right program, you scan the thing, you can find it. So, you know, again, the game has changed, kids. The game has radically changed, and I think some people are only now coming to grips with it. I mean, and the CFTC and SEC, I think they are finally starting to get realistic about it, though. And I'd really like to see that kind of shift, which with regard to the IRS. And you know, this isn't me saying do it or anything like that, but I really think that the vast majority of people that are holding most of their quote-unquote monetary value in cryptos are not reporting it to the IRS. I could be mistaken on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. The last I'd heard, I think it was like 0.25% of people that they estimate are involved in cryptocurrencies in some way, shape, or form are actually reporting or had actually reported to that date. Again, I could be mistaken, but that's the last I seem to recall about it. And I think that response on the part of the crypto community to these entities is really starting to make them look in the mirror and going, what are we going to do about this? Can we do anything about this? What is our place to try and do anything about this? And how exactly will we go about it? Because, it's kind of obvious that the whole crypto market doesn't just swing on one entity's whim. It's several entities working out of their own self-interest. And everybody else be damned. They're going for their interests. This is a game where you're supposed to be acting out of your own interests. And in doing so, that is what gives the blockchain its validity, is because you are working out of pure, unadulterated greed and self-interest. Now, of course, it is in your interest for the blocks to be valid that you're producing. So, there's those considerations to be taken into account. But, overall, the big plan here is to make money doing what you're doing. Not necessarily get rich, uber rich or anything like that, but enough to be able to, pay for your electricity, your bandwidth, and your hardware, and any upgrades that you intend to make in between to improve those things. And so, you want to talk about a Fed coin or something like that? Okay, I want the same things, the same attributes of Bitcoin applied to your Fed coin. I.e., no mandate, federal, state, or otherwise, that we be enforced or coerced to use any particular cryptocurrency. That if you want to play in this field, you got to be playing by our rules. And our rules are that you don't really have any control. You put it out there, and if people want to use it, they will fucking use it. If they like your monetary policy on your coin, they will use your coin. Say your confirmation time is 15 seconds and, your throughput is like, 4 or 5 megabytes or 4 to 6 megabytes or some shit like that. And you're able to handle the bandwidth, and your transactions are cheaper than everybody else's and faster than everybody else's. Fuck, you'll probably draw all kinds of interest, but you would have to be willing to entertain the possibility that all of the mining on your network will be done by the public, or at least the vast majority of it, certainly more than yours. And if you're successful in your coin, that fact is going to continue to change over time. It will continue to increase over time. As your coin gets more popular and you draw more people to mining it, you will have more people mining it, and your interest in the mining pool and the total mining power on the network will suffer that hit as a reflection. But you won't give a fuck because you'll be making so much more money on your coins that your interest is kind of evened out, But yeah, I think that's like the only way that any kind of federal entity coin or any kind of company coin or state coin or city coin or coin, whatever coin, is going to work, is you really have to be able to put it up in front of the public, let the public use it, let the vicious miners use it, let the selfish miners use it, let us use it. Let us participate in maintaining the networks. Let us be the network. Because that is the way that it'll show a true reflection of how the public feels about your coin. And not just the public here in the United States. You put out a Fed coin, and sure, you'll have a potential 350 million customers that may or may not be willing to use your coin. And you might even have laws that say that they can only be they can be the only people using your coin. But it doesn't matter. It'll develop a market somewhere else. And because it's digital, it'll be able to be sent anywhere. And so the idea that you're going to retain control over a cryptocurrency, no, not going to happen. So the key here is let go of the reins. Let the market tell you how it wants to use your coin. I think that this is a point that cryptocurrency and people that are involved in deving for cryptocurrencies are constantly butting their heads against, is that you can only do what you intend to do and be as thoroughly transparent and open as you possibly can. When you start lying, when you start censoring, when you start misrepresenting, you start losing trust. And not just among the OGs, because people look at what the OGs say and they're like, that guy does have an educated perspective, because, you know, he has been involved for the last 4 or 5 years. I might want to listen to him. I might want to pay a little bit of heed to what he has to say. Because really, he's the closest thing to an expert that you have to defer to any kind of a realm of authority. That person's been running their own affairs, their own monetary affairs for 5 years. They're one up on like 40% of all the bankers out there. All of them. You get below the layer, the administrative layer, the executive layer, they're not even touching it at this. They're not even touching monetary policy except for how it actually plays out in the field. Anyway, I got a couple other tabs that we definitely want to be getting into. This one, not terribly interested in. This one, though. And this is more of that idea that you can defer to an authority about this. There is no authority here. There is no mommy and daddy. You've been seeing more and more indication of that everywhere you look. There are people that say they're mommies and daddies, and they say certain rules, but their ability to actually enforce them is so minimal that they only catch really aberrant and abusive individuals. They're not catching the vast majority of the activity that's going on out there that is outside of their realm of grasp. But that doesn't stop people that are used to having a mommy or daddy in the room to try and tattletale on other players in this realm. And, well, here, this is an idea of how I see those things actually playing out. This was on Bitcoinist.com. Plug pulled on Bitcoin.com lawsuit after donation shortfall. This is by Matthew Hrones. So, no penis. Oh, yes, penis. My apologies. Got used to reading a bunch of articles by women there. May 4th, 2018, 2 a.m. Dedication, Matthew. Continuing on. Selling Bitcoin Core. Bitcoin.com made waves last month when they changed Bitcoin to Bitcoin Core and Bitcoin Cash to Bitcoin on the Block Explorer found elsewhere on the website. CEO Roger Ver is a very outspoken proponent of Bitcoin Cash and argues that Bitcoin Cash is the true Bitcoin. Thousands were outraged at the change, with one user, Money Triggs, taking it upon himself to set up a class action lawsuit against the website, claiming it was purposely misleading users into buying the wrong cryptocurrency. A Telegram group was started to organize potential victims and create a base of operation. Within 2 days, a website was up giving people information on the accusations and what is being done. Within just days of the lawsuit gaining popularity, Bitcoin.com reversed many of the controversial changes on the site, once again referring to Bitcoin as Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash as Bitcoin Cash. Quote, "We were able to at least make an impact." Earlier, Money Triggs announced in the Telegram group chat that he was considering shutting down the lawsuit after only receiving under $4,000 in donations to fund it. With tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars needed to fund a controversial legal battle, Money Triggs has decided to refund the 33 transactions he'd received so far. When asked about the decision, Moneytrigs responded, "Due to lack of donations, we decided to cancel the initiative and refund the 33 transactions received, a total of 0.39 Bitcoin. We are happy at least we were able to make an impact with Bitcoin.com changing 90% of its disinformation campaign, which was accomplished on our own dime and awareness with help from the media." A few users in the Telegram were unhappy with the decision, but Moneytrigs emphasized that without additional funds, nothing could be done. However, the majority were still very happy with the effects of the lawsuit. Effects of the lawsuit had already caused. Dude, do some fucking reading. Read your own shit. One user looked at the cup as being half full, saying, quote, "Mate, you've done a fantastic job. Bitcoin.com changed their website, so even if it doesn't go further, at least you put the fear in them." Yeah. I don't know about fear. It's probably the concern for any liability. And, I think this is just bullshit. Why would you do that? Why would you care? If you hate Bitcoin Cash so much, don't invest in it. Don't like Bitcoin.com? Don't go there. Go somewhere else. That's what I was hearing in response to me and other people commenting on r/Bitcoin. That all the censorship and the bullshit and the misrepresentation going on there, that's cool. And if you say anything about it, they're just gonna downvote your shit or delete it, outright delete it. And having been in the driver's seat for a lot of action like that, both at our Bitcoin and Twitter, I can say that kind of behavior just makes me want to do business with those people less. And the idea that you can't be held accountable in cryptocurrencies, why don't you ask Carpelli's? Talk to him about all the death threats that man's received, because I'm sure he's received plenty. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The accountability in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is better than any form of money known to man. And it doesn't just record your good deeds. It records the times you fuck up too. So pay attention. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And I haven't been playing any Nothing Face. I don't know if you noticed that, but I have. And let's go ahead and take care of that right now with Can't Wait for Violence here on CoinMetal. And that was Machine Head with The Rage to Overcome. Anyway, I'm coming down to the last hour. We got about 40 minutes left. Trying to think of what exactly we could stuff, because like I said, I do have several tabs still open, so we do have a few directions we can finish this one out on. And so I could go with a bunch of little ones or just one really big one. And I'm kind of tending towards the really big one myself. Let's see here, where is it at? Oh, that's not it. I'm trying to find it now that... is that it? No. It's not it. Damn it, Jim. Did I lose the damn thing? Let's try unclosing a few tabs. Might be able to find it. No. I found some sort of white paper business that I was wanting to read, and it was kind of long, so I was like, do I really want to read this thing? And I do want to, though. But yeah, I did cover this one by Clem Chambers about Bitcoin being the new flight capital. That's one of those things that, again, he's looking at it for one aspect, and that's what he sees. It's kind of that thing. I do want to cover this one, though. It's nice, short, sweet, and it's good news for Verge. And if you have not heard, Verge, I think it either has or is about to have a block halvening, or block reward halvening, which means that the reward at the end of the block is going to be cut in half, for those of you who are unfamiliar. We are scheduled to have one sometime in 2020 for Bitcoin, and that'll be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. But, that's happening on Verge, I believe, this week, or it may have already happened, really. It seemed like I'd heard that it was going to be happening in a couple days ago. So, whether it has actually happened yet, I'm not entirely certain. I'm sure that at some point or another I will investigate and find out for sure. But this one is kind of big. Bitfinex launches Verge XVG trading. Bitfinex is pleased to introduce trading for Verge currency. Deposits have been enabled with trading set to go live at 11:30 a.m. UTC, and this was authored on May 1st, 2018, 9:30 a.m. So it was about 2 hours before, I guess. Verge is a decentralized blockchain platform and cryptographic token created with privacy in mind. Verge is fast, flexible, private, and anonymous. In addition to this, it's a currency built to support mass adoption as it scales across the globe. Verge makes it possible to conduct direct, low-cost transactions quickly, efficiently, and privately, providing businesses and individuals with a new option for sending and receiving instantaneous payments. XVG will be tradable against Bitcoin, Ethereum, USD, GBP, Euro, and JPY. Margin trading and P2P funding will be enabled gradually as and when the order book develops liquidity. Very, very cool. And that one, I've watched this coin grow from like its infancy forward, and it's never ceased to amaze me how it's just continuing to grow. I remember when it was 1 Satoshi and it was not on any exchanges, and then it got on one exchange, and then another exchange, and then another exchange, and Bittrex picked it up, or actually I think it was MintPal picked it up, and then I think Cryptsy picked it up, and I'm not sure if Bittrex picked it up before Cryptsy or not, but that was a big one, because at the time Cryptsy was a really big altcoin exchange, and I traded on there almost exclusively. But yeah, so their migration forward onto Bitfinex, which is a much bigger exchange distribution-wise or membership-wise than a lot of others, I think is pretty big. The fact we were on Binance, and that one's like the fastest-growing exchange out there, period. I think that was significant enough, but the fact that we are getting on Bitfinex and getting so many different trading pairs right off the bat, I think that is really, really awesome. And certainly for Verge's future as time goes forward. And so yeah, I just wanted to cover that as a little taste. But this is one I've been a little more interested in, only because I feel like this is one of those subjects that's kind of screwed with me for quite a while, and I found the white paper that I was trying to locate. This is on inthemesh.com, I guess. White paper on the connectivity of mesh networks. Range is everything. This, like I said, this is one of those things that's near and dear to my heart, with regard to decentralization in the internet. Ooh, it's only 5 pages too, so we can do it. I think we can do it. We got plenty of time. This is by I was going to read this article here on In the Mesh, but they give us a link to the white paper, and I think it's more what we want to read. Anyway, here it is. This is by Ramanthan. Yeah, all right. Imagine that we need to provide mesh-based communications in a 3x3 mile area. This could be a disaster zone, a small suburban town seeking alternate communications, a military deployment, or a large group of hikers. Assume that mesh connectivity is provided by hopping through both user-owned and pure relay devices. We will refer to them collectively and also as nodes. For the network to be useful, the nodes need to be connected. By connected, we mean that every node should be able to connect with every other node via some number of hops. Connectivity is of paramount importance. If you are isolated or a part of a small cluster cut off from the rest of the network, your mesh device is useless. It is clear that the more nodes you place, the better your chances of connectivity. But what is the minimum number of nodes in the area needed to make the mesh network connected? The answer depends on the communication range of the device, which in turn depends on RF technology. In the last decade or so, Wi-Fi Direct has emerged as the technology of choice for license-free, carrier-free mobile wireless communications. It is not surprising then that a vast majority of peer-to-peer mesh networking solutions have adopted Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi Direct for inter-device communications. But Wi-Fi is not the only choice. Other options include LTE Direct and long-range technologies. Each technology provides a different trade-off between range, data rate, and cost. This brings up a related question. For each RF technology and associated range, what is the cost of coverage, i.e. connecting a given area? This is especially pertinent in light of blockchain-based protocols that are being proposed to incentivize mesh network participation. Most of these projects explicitly or implicitly base their efforts on a particular technology, Wi-Fi being the most popular. Do their choices make sense in terms of connectivity potential and cost? Are their coins of any value? Using graph theoretic models and simulations, we have analyzed the connectivity of a mesh network as a function of the number of nodes for Wi-Fi Direct, LTE Direct, and Gotenna. Figure 1 left shows the connectivity for Wi-Fi Direct-based network with 50 randomly placed nodes in a 3x3 mile area based on a simulation. We used a range of 200 meters for Wi-Fi Direct, which is likely optimistic. The result is disastrous. We mostly got singletons and a handful of very small clusters with 3 nodes or fewer. Figure 2 shows the connectivity for Wi-Fi Direct-based network with 500 nodes. Surely this should be enough. Unfortunately, the improvement is only marginal. We do get clusters of 10 to 15 nodes, but overall this is not a network you can usefully deploy. As figure 3 below shows, bringing the number of nodes up to 1,000 nodes doesn't solve the problem either. There's just little groupings of clusters. At this point, it's becoming clear that Wi-Fi range is limited enough to be largely useless. Recently, and possibly because of this limitation of Wi-Fi, LTE Direct has been garnering attention. LTE Direct allows 2 smartphones with LTE service to connect directly without going through a cell tower. Figure 4 below shows the connectivity for LTE Direct based on a network with 50 250 and 500 nodes respectively. Wow, a lot more connectivity. At 50 nodes, the situation is not much better than Wi-Fi, and even with 250 nodes, the network remains disconnected. Even when we see connectivity at 500 nodes, a few are dangerously close to being isolated. Further, the diameter of this network is 13, meaning that some messages may have to go as many as 13 hops before they reach their destination. At $500 each, the cost of 500 smartphones to cover a 3x3 mile area would be about $250,000. But this is a point you didn't add there. It would be shouldered by 500 different individuals. So, who gives a fuck? Wi-Fi Direct and LTE Direct use the same, quote, hardware, the smartphone, for both the mesh router and the application platform. An alternate design pioneered by Gotenna is to decouple the two functions. In the Gotenna system, the smartphone pairs with a dedicated small, light, low-power, low-cost device that forms a mesh network with other such devices. The Gotenna device has a range measured in miles, depending on terrain. Using the most conservative estimate of 1 mile range, how many nodes would be required to cover a 3x3 mile area? The figure below shows the connectivity for a Gotenna network using range 1 mile using just 25 nodes. Not only is the network connected, but the connectivity is robust. Every node can reach every other node via at least two disjointed paths. Further, the diameter of the network in the figure is only 4 hops. Table 1 below summarizes the information along with cost estimate for covering the 3x3 mile area with each technology at $500 per smartphone and $80 per Gotenna mesh device. For the Gotenna numbers, we assumed that each node consists of a Gotenna device plus a smartphone, although Gotenna mesh can operate as an unpaired relay. The Wi-Fi numbers assume that equipment is newly provisioned, whereas in reality, users may already have smartphones with Wi-Fi Direct and, to a lesser extent, LTE Direct. On the other hand, population distribution tends to be highly clustered rather than uniformly random, and therefore not conducive to connectivity without additional relays. Thus, the table represents only a high-level ballpark comparison. Nonetheless, it is clear from the magnitude of the cost difference that long-range, low-cost technologies such as Gotenna handily win when it comes to overall cost of coverage. And let's see. Overall equipment cost, blah, 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 blah. Okay. It is not surprising that a higher range implies fewer nodes for coverage. What is remarkable, however, is the outsized impact of range in terms of nodes and cost. Gotenna Mesh's range is 3 times greater than that of an LTE Direct device, yet it reduces the number of nodes required to achieve robust connectivity by a factor of 20. Wi-Fi devices, whose range is about 12% of Gotenna's mesh devices, requires 40 times as many nodes to reach connectivity. But wait, you might say, don't Wi-Fi and LTE have higher data rates? Indeed they do. However, when building out a mesh network, connectivity is more important. After all, if you are not connected, what good does high data rate do? Yeah, you're pretty much sending it to the clouds. Mesh networks suffer from what we call a zero-start problem. Users need connectivity to participate in a network, but achieving connectivity requires participating users. Only with ranges on the order of Gotenna devices can one hope to solve the zero-start problem. Once we bootstrap connectivity, organic growth of the network may well provide enough nodes to reduce range and increase bitrate. Connectivity and its relationship to node diversity, or node density rather, has been and is a topic of much theoretical research in academia. For an interesting aspect that has emerged is that as you increase range or number of nodes, connectivity happens suddenly. Just below a critical threshold of range, for instance, the network is still highly fragmented, but with just a few increases, it is connected. Amazingly, this phenomenon is shown to be connected to a field in probability theory called percolation theory. Percolation theory. That studies the conditions under which liquid, ergo water, poured onto a porous material, ergo ground coffee, can actually flow. Diving into this, however, is beyond the scope of this article, though I plan to write about it in this very publication soon. In summary, pervasive decentralized off-grid communication requires coverage via connected mesh networks. The connectivity of a mesh network depends on the number of nodes deployed and the device range, which in turn depend on the RF technology used. Analyzing the various options, it turns out that range has a nonlinear and outsized impact on connectivity. Wi-Fi Direct and, to a lesser extent, LTE Direct are insufficient to provide cost-effective connectivity. On the other hand, the ranges offered GoTenna Mesh appear to be necessary and sufficient, in combination with incentivized deployment to realize the vision of decentralized off-grid communications. Yeah, I think this is interesting. That the participation itself is incentivized, and so you're kind of no conscription needed there. Yeah, I think that mesh networks are definitely part of our future. And as far as incentivizing them, I think that would be the first step to building a a distribution network of your commerce. That because you have the capability to connect to people via your hops that are a significant area away from you, that you could be enhancing your own commerce. But yeah, with the aspects of cryptocurrencies being that, if you want to mine them, you can mine them. And then you add to this if you want to connect, you can connect. All kinds of microeconomies could be developing. That you could deploy several of these GoTennas or a similar device using a similar technology, perhaps open source, and you could see the same kind of network effect that we saw with Bitcoin, where if anybody could participate, everyone does try and participate, and to varying levels of success. And the most successful will continue to participate as they see fit, and everybody else will kind of drop off to the wayside. And that's been what we've seen so far, and I don't expect that to change. That the more rewarding it is for you to participate, the more people will participate. I think this is the point that Fed coins and institutional coins and institutional tokens and utility tokens and all those, they really have to be taking that into account. Is that now that we do have options, the viability and advantage conferred to the user is now paramount. It's not a matter of you can make this illegal, you can ban that. No. You can try and ban it. It can look effectual on the surface. But I'm sure there are people in New York that are doing all kinds of activities that are regulated and limited and licensed and all that via the NYDFS, via their bit license, and no one is the wiser because the means of inspecting the commerce are not available to them, are simply unavailable to them. There are a variety of ways of cloaking your identity, even with cell phones. And when you connect to that the pseudonymity of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, you now have the capability to do commerce with people in ways that nobody can track, nobody can monitor. So what? You know my social security number. You don't know the identity under which I'm transacting, because the device that I'm using isn't even bound to me. I think this is among those aha moments that we're starting to hear reflections back from the SEC and the CFTC, is that I really think that Giancarlo, he has got a cryptocurrency account, a cryptocurrency trading account on the same exchanges that you and I operate on, and he's trading. He got bit. And as soon as he moved some money around from his exchange to his wallet to a private individual or whatever, he understood. It's like, holy shit, 7 billion people on this planet at one time or another may be capable of doing this. There's no hope. There's no amount of money they could throw at the mandate of the CFTC that will ever get that under enough control for us to be able to issuing using the same regulatory frameworks that we have been all this time, since 1935. He's looking at that and he's seeing rusty bars all around him while everybody else is teleporting around, and he's like, this is unfair to me, of course, because I've got all this public scrutiny on me. And so rather than enduring that kind of scrutiny when it comes to tax time, it's time to get serious about frameworks that don't impede this. Because there are too many advantages for us as an institution to use this, and nobody will care that we're using it as long as we're using it according to their rules. So we could do Bitcoin transactions all day long. We could be moving billions of dollars from one department to another or to entities abroad, and nobody will give a fuck as long as we're doing it the way that they're doing it. We might want to space it out over a few transactions or something just to avoid any kind of real scrutiny, but those kind of advantages being conferred to you, the user, federal government, now, you don't necessarily want those taken away. Because just as much as we know, as soon as you do start tightening the screws on it, all of your activity to date will be brought into question. You will be brought to the same level of account that we will. And because we're using the same method of recording and we all have the same records, you're avoiding any kind of responsibility or culpability. It's gone. It's gone. Your fingerprints are everywhere all over it. Your taint is stinking it up. It's too bad, so sad. We find out those monies went from, somebody who stole them from somebody to you at any point. You're completely screwed, dude. If you bought some Bitcoin in an OTC trade and you weren't really caring where they came from or who previously owned them, you want to bust kids for doing that kind of thing, for taking somebody else's Bitcoin and then spending it or whatever, you're going to end up getting busted too. Because one of those kids probably sold you their coin. I mean, there is no running away from it. You gotta really start looking at things in a realistic manner, because as much as you've been able to hide previously, you're not going to be able to hide in these systems. You know, I've said to many people that cryptocurrencies are by far the most accountable form of money ever invented by man. And big whoop-de-doo, you can track some guy in Alabama, you can track his fucking kitty porn collection as he accumulates it using some sort of cryptocurrency. Okay, big whoop-de-doo, you've done that. But when Giancarlo bought some Bitcoin back in 2014 and sat on it for a little while, and then maybe traded some of it in 2016 because there wasn't any real regulatory oversight on it, and then all of a sudden the IRS says, oh, we want to tax you on every single trade you've made. And Giancarlo finds out now he's 2 years in the hole to the IRS for transactions that he made back in 2016, because those investments actually paid off and he made a significant sum of money on them. That shit's coming to fruition. And I know it's in the back of the mind of every single regulator who even looks at Bitcoin and decides to invest in it. Especially now. They're reading the memos coming across their desks and they're like, dude, if we start putting the hammer down on people for this shit, I'm going to jail. That's probably not a real good idea. Especially not if you want to keep me in this chair. I know I want to keep me in this chair, so I'm not going to pass it. You know? The people that are currently at the head of the Fed and all that, they weren't always at the head of the Fed. They weren't always in the position that they are in now. Maybe in 2014 they did some Bitcoin transactions. Maybe those investments paid off fabulously. They try and move the coins from it, and it doesn't matter that they're head of the SEC or the CFTC or the NSA or the CIA or the FBI or President fucking Trump himself. He's now accountable to the same burdens that they're going to try to apply to everybody else. That must scare the fucking shit out of anybody in federal government right now, that, oh shit, there's a chance that I might be held to account for something I've done? Oh my god! You gotta fucking avoid that like the plague. I mean, I know for a fact that is what's going through these people's minds. And I feel for them, I really do. Because being in that position where you've got some people nagging you saying, hey, you know, we should probably do something about this. There's some money flowing that we're not getting any of. We might want to do something about that. And then on the other hand, you're reflecting back on the record on the Bitcoin blockchain of the trade you made back in 2015 when you bought some heroin on the dark web in 2016. And you're saying to yourself, now, do I want it outed that I bought some fucking heroin on the dark web via some website or another, the Silk Road? Do I want to be associated with that? Do I want my political career to have any legs? Then no, I'm probably not going to be doing anything about that. And really, dude, that's the best thing you can do. Because those people that are bitching about it right now, you know what they're going to do tomorrow? They're going to investigate it to find out why they're getting pwned on Twitter and why they're getting pwned on Facebook. Why everybody they say Bitcoin is a scam to tells them to fuck off and gives them the what for. And they're going to say to themselves, you know, why am I getting the what for? You know, what the fuck? Maybe I should read this Bitcoin white paper thing and find out what the fuck this is all really about. And not listen to the fucking asshole on CNBC who's telling me this thing is a scam, or Jamie Dimon, or whatever. And they're going to find out that the emperor really doesn't have any clothes. And that this shit is just as open to them as the highest and mightiest technologist and the most ardent of regulators, and they're going to start participating. And you're not going to hear from them anymore. They're not going to be bitching to you about, let's regulate crypto, because now 40% of their own portfolio will be crypto, and they'll be like, well, maybe that's not really all that important to regulate crypto. I mean, because, Bitcoin's going to go up, and I really want to make a lot of money. So, if you could just back off for a little bit, and maybe we can talk about this later, okay? That's the tune change going on. So again, sit on your hands. Do it for another 2 years. Another 5-10% of grandmas and grandpas and nephews and nieces and uncles and all those people get involved. And again, then you will the din you're hearing of people yapping in your ear, you got to regulate this, you got to tax this. It's all going to go away. It's all going to go away. Go bye-bye. As a matter of fact, the most ardent people among us when it comes to calling stuff out have already started to capitulate. I don't have the gumption to find it at the moment, but Berkeley is doing something where they're setting up some sort of ICO or another for housing for, I guess, low-income people. I think that's awesome. But these are the people that would be whining the most about trying to get in on taxing it. But they see that there is some way that they could be funding all of the really neat ideas they have in their minds about how they could be helping out society. They're looking at this and they're saying, wait a minute, okay, if you can buy drugs on the dark web with this shit, you could probably fund a housing campaign with it too. Why don't we try that and see how that works out? And see, this is where that lack of regulatory burden is helping you. We are going to solve a lot of the problems that we've been looking to regulators and Congress people and senators and mayors and governors to solve. Their jobs are going to get a hell of a lot easier because we're going to be capable of using this technology to be helping out ourselves, and we won't necessarily need to be deferring to authority anymore. And while that might be a bitch for the authoritarians out there, I feel that before long they themselves will be availing themselves of this technology and the advantages it confers, and they too are going to shut the fuck up because they will be making way too fucking much money to try and step in front of somebody else making money. It'll be a waste of time. It'll be an inefficiency to bother doing so. And it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. We will be back again on Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, as usual, of course. You can always find me on Twitter. I have been as quick as I possibly can about putting these episodes up on YouTube for your later listening pleasure. And so, until Monday, you can find me on Twitter. You can also find me in the Telegram room for Verge Currency. And so until then, I want you all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Thank you very, very much for listening. I certainly appreciate the support. Again, you can find me on Twitter, and you all have an excellent weekend. As for our last dance, I hadn't actually picked anything out. And I know that's not really surprising for a lot of you. But somebody had said something about Pantera earlier, and I think it is appropriate. And so we are going to, let's see, I think I have that album. I do. And which one is it? Shedding Skin. Perfect. And so that's going to be our last dance for the evening. Pantera, Shedding Skin. Thank you again for listening, and you all have an excellent evening.